Hi, my name
Hello.
is Shelvin Curve, and I am a blogger of my own blog called The World of Autism. And I've been recording guest interview series since last year. And I've brought on self advocates who live with autism. I've brought on therapists, parents, families, educators who work with individuals living with autism. And I know how much that this guest interview really benefits the community. So my next guest on here is a self advocate himself. His name is Scott. How you doing, Scott?
Uh, well, it's been a rough time lately. I do prefer Scott Norman. I just tell everybody that because I like the way it rolls.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Okay.
Scott Norman Rosenthal.
Very cool. Very cool. So we're gonna start off by letting you share about your experiences growing up with autism.
Well, many people, and again, I'm very disorganized. I was not allowed to finish the ninth grade. It's a long story. I made many mistakes. This was not helped by the fact that I was up against a system that kept trying to force me into psychiatry even after I compiled medical evidence that the problem wasn't psychological. And I mean, we're talking about actions that should have been indicted. They were indictable. I think politically, I'm 67 years old. I was born in Egg Harbor City. No, I mean, but I lived from the time I was a year old in Egg Harbor City, New Jersey, till the time I was 41. No, oh God. I knew I was going to get scared and mess up this thing, but that
No,
was
it's okay. It's
95.
okay.
Okay,
Take
I
your
was
time.
40. I left in 95. I was 40. Oh, yeah, I was 41 when I left. From the earliest times, okay, let me backtrack a bit. My case, I believe, underscores, I'm not denying the existence or validity or problems that are associated with what we call autism. But I challenge, as I do with mental illness, I challenge the idea that it is an underlying cause. I believe it is an effect. In other words, it's not that you are this way or that way because you have autism, no. But that you have things going on in your body, mind, nervous system, which is part of the body and the mind, that then lead to characteristics that are labeled autism. I don't think there is a human being alive that is not on a continual spectrum. I don't believe that it is, and I get on some sites on Facebook where some people are willing to discuss, and other times all I hear them trashing neurotypicals and what they think of us. I mean us. Let's say that there is a thing called autism, et cetera, but would you want someone saying that this is what you think, and because you're autistic, and this is what Scott Norman Rosenthal thinks because he's autistic, and that all these people are autistic, and this is what they think? I believe human beings are able to think for themselves. Mm-hmm. I don't believe in neurotypical, neurodiverse. I think, as I say, it's all a continuum. Many people are using it as an excuse. They get a job. They don't like the job. Perhaps the boss asks them to perform a little bit better, and they complain that they're being discriminated against because of their autism. This I've seen in my life. I've been involved in a number of movements. Doesn't matter how noble. Oh, I've always gotten what we used to be called short shrift, meaning that I was always and I say this not out of self-pity, but out of what used to be called affirmation. It's been a stressful couple of weeks and holes in my, that self-esteem, that I have been shortchanged. There's many things I have not been able to do that I wish I had. I've also been shortchanged. I've done things, I've seen people get credit for doing much less than myself in a situation. I've seen people get credit for what I did. Goes on and on. Now, from the earliest time, I believed that I was a freak of nature. I'm going to try to show a bit more of my face, not that you're missing much. Because the symptomatology in this case was so bizarre. I was in continual neurometabolic agony at all times, different levels, not all acute pain, mostly bizarre sensations of smothering. Some of the symptoms were described as symptoms I learned later were associated with hypoglycemia, which is again a symptom, not an underlying cause. I'm not babbling. It's so hard to take all this that I had to learn because I broke away from the medical system at one point. I was basically told that they didn't care what the blood test results showed. I was going to be treated like the property of the mental health system at one particular clinic near where I used to live. Not all the doctors there said that, but the ones in charge, it was like, look, this is how we do it. You know your problem is physiological, and we know it. They had been given some blood tests and indicated an irregularity. You know it, and we know it, and you know it. I made a lot of mistakes, completely writing off the medical system, getting politicized. I got radicalized because I blamed our system with the government, which it was essentially a part, even though, in other words, you go to a clinic, they've got the power to declare whether you have this problem. That I think you understand what I mean. But all right, so I grew up with these symptoms. My mother suffered a similar syndrome and it took her life. She looked and sounded like, toward the end, like a living mummy out of a horror movie. You're a little bit young to remember the heyday of those kind of movies, but
No.
Her condition at the end resembled AIDS. And there have been some cases described as AIDS without HIV, because the person does not have the virus, but their body falls apart. There was a poster popular about 30 years ago. Person split in half. One was before the advent of the AIDS and afterwards. She looked like, when she passed away, she looked like the after half. I was a difficult person. I was vilely mistreated, and I mistreated others in turn. And I learned that about the world, it is often the vulnerable and innocent people who wind up being the brunt. And I did that, and I'm not proud of it. Tried to make up for it. I got involved with alternative medicine, which, contrary to the false propaganda, is based in diet and exercise. Do I believe in the power of crystals? I mean, get your hands on a piece of one good crystal to try would be rose quartz, not well polished, but rough. Get it between your two hands and relax as much as you're able. Matter is energy, matter vibrates. I believe it can be felt. But in my refrigerator, I have brown rice, cornmeal, organic, because it doesn't cost that much more. Sometimes it doesn't cost as much as the name brands of non-organic. Brown rice, cornmeal, millet, buckwheat, red lentils, chickpeas, black beans. I have 6 or 7, maybe 8 legumes, meaning beans. Red lentils are actually a legume. Peanuts a legume. I don't have any of them right now. Forgive me, I admit I'm a bit unprepared, but the point is, I found that when I ate right and I exercised, at first it was exercise. The agony relieved. It would speed me up, but it would relieve. I had tried marijuana a few times because I was told, I don't even know. No, I just tried it, see what it would do. Growing up, I was too metabolically speeded to even get a buzz. But then after, I'm trying to compress, like a life, like 67 years into this. And it ain't easy. I never finish documents, and I want to work on that. I'm not too old. But I have a document that expounds much of this. Sometimes there's reasons. I've lost my housing twice, been homeless twice, that is. I worked with homelessness when I was in my late 20s. My father was living at the time. We really didn't have much. Many people, even well-meaning people, assume because I sound educated and I'm from a Jewish background that I must have come from at least secure, educated people, but I did not. My father was dysfunctional. My mother had a problem like mine, which took her life. My father lived beyond 16 years, beyond my mother. And he passed away at 78, 78. But he would give me, we couldn't afford it. And I only realized later how badly we couldn't afford it. But he would give me $20 to go to the thrift store. He'd give me $20. I would go over the bridge into Philadelphia. And I would hit the streets and I would give out stuff. I wasn't always right. I treated people badly. You can do a ton of right, but very often your conscience, you're not going to find a smidgen of comfort, not anywhere near the comfort in what you've done right, as the guilt in what you have done wrong. Okay? Somewhere in there, I got involved with the alternative medicine. First, I just tried eating a little healthier because it was cheaper. I felt better. Then I got involved with someone, didn't treat them right either. Deborah and David Sheets, and her maiden name was Dimbeck, I believe. Deborah Rosenthal, Scott Norman Rosenthal. Roses have cropped up as omens in my life, if you believe in such things. At 31, I had a best friend who passed away of cancer. He should have taken his own advice. He should have known better than to eat quite as much Chinese takeout, and should have eaten more, particularly organic brown rice. Well, we were sitting in his backyard. He had a toughness and a responsibility that I didn't. Most of my friends have had. We were under the influence of marijuana, I admit that. Now, I'd started the alternative medicine, it was about 3 years before, in earnest. What Deborah coached was 5-phase Chinese medicine, which sounds mystical, and it is based in the idea that matter is energy, which is a very sound idea biologically.
It sounds interesting. Like, just taking like what's around you and like what's,
It's also sound biologically, like it's sound biologically. And
in a way it kind of does.
well, I mean, as an example, even if it's organic white rice, it does bad things to me. I have a worse reaction to organic white rice than I do to non-organic brown rice. I'm struggling with a caffeine addiction. I'd gotten over it. When I lost my housing the second time, it came back because I couldn't get my diet. But I'm going to go back to 1985. Yes. I was 31. We're sitting in his backyard, and he said, "Scott, look at the blue heron." Now, previously, when I looked up, I would, at a bird flying, I would see a blur, a suggestion of shade. I could pass optical and audio tests. But what I figured out later is the tonal range was lacking. Okay? In fact, I took to still photography at an early age, at the age of 10. Gave it up for 4 years, went back. At this point, I have 53 years experience in still photography. People indulged me, people bought me things, but I still didn't have put it this way, it might have been a bed of roses, but it was certainly wild roses, which have no flowers, they just have the thorns.
Mm.
Well, Rob mentioned the bird flying. And I said, "Rob, I can't tell one bird from another, blue heron." Forgive me, I'm very choppy. I happen to be involved in a political situation. I have inside knowledge of some very serious and dangerous things going on right here in Vermont that are affecting the rest of the country and could have a horrible effect here. Mm. And that guy's crazy, don't listen to him. Yeah, right. Former friends of mine. We're talking about leftists. A pox on all their houses. If you think they're much better than the right, you're wrong. But so he mentioned the blue heron, and I looked up, and I saw this amazing ovoid, like steel gray blue body, and they don't. How should I put it? The word stodgy, primitive applies, but it doesn't give an accurate picture. They are elegant because they are not so graceful. They're not ballerinas. And they sort of tread. They have these big webbed feet, and they tread the sky. They don't fly like a sparrow or a hawk. And they sort of tread horizontally across the sky. Don't you wish you could do that? Mm. Technically, you can when you're on a bicycle. That's another issue. My mind does see associations. And at that moment, I was 31 years old, 1985, and I says to myself, I was going to choose to believe in a proactively spiritual universe. not in some, with all due respect to my Christian friends, Rob was a follower of Jesus of Nazareth, the man I'm speaking of.
Mm.
He didn't think I was going to go to hell if I wasn't. But I didn't find a revelation about some patriarchal deity, nor an avatar that was going to personally lead me into some pluperfect salvation. But I had a revelation. I said, in this way, and I learned later that matter, it's generally understood now, matter is energy, etc.
Mm.
But I said, the people, and I thought of my healer, I call her Deborah Rose. And then there was this man, Rob, and these people who've helped you, that have led you out of that awful agony. Because I was still, things were not right, but they were so much better than they had been. And it says, they tell you it's a proactively spiritual universe. The same system that you understand has raped entire continents, enslaved whole, I thought too simplistically in those days, enslaved whole peoples, done all kinds of horrible things, and it's mistreated you, misdiagnosed you, stripped you of due process of law, kept you in that agony for profit, for hierarchy, tells you, oh no, this universe is inert particles colliding with one another. Now, who are you going to believe? The people who've lied to you your entire life. A system that you realize is riddled with lies. Or are you going to believe the people who have shown you something that worked? It wasn't a lie.
Mm.
Because I had learned already that diagnosis was based on ability to pay, of a problem like mine. And there was a concept of you can't, we might say we can't, someone might say, you can't believe this, it's ridiculous. You can't believe that, it's ridiculous. Oh, you can believe this, it's rational. But to believe, it is an action that we do. And it's not, one may believe anything. Now, whether it's true or not, that's always going to be a toss-up. That's always going to be a toss-up. I'm using language, meaning that's always going to be a question. I got to forget these expressions because language has changed so much. And
Absolutely.
right about the same time is when I found I could perceive sound well enough to play a harmonica, which I got pretty good at, at least that's what I was told. As I say, I could pass the tests, but the tonal range was lacking. So I wasted time. I didn't do things right. I wanted to finish high school. I wasn't allowed. I should have compromised. I didn't compromise. They would have given me a tutor. Preparatory education is more important than we think it is. Where I made my mistake was giving too much time to my politics and this community work that I do. I probably didn't mention that, but I wanted to work with art. I was stymied, I was stifled. As I implied, it particularly happened with my artwork in Philadelphia. I'm not the only one that will tell you that, this is how Philadelphia is, that, I was just robbed of credit. I was denied what I earned. I was denied venues that were alleged to be open, but I was denied them. Venues that were funded to be open. I was robbed of credit. Often I would perform, but somebody would just plain leave me off of the program, off of the list. I'm not making this up. This was like, and I did realize that Our consciousness is infinite. I use the term autism, but I virtually always accompany it with a disclaimer that I believe we're all on the spectrum.